Hi there, everybody. It's 4 o'clock in New York. It's a MAGA Eat MAGA world as a vote looms to release the Epstein files. Donald Trump today finding himself in a position he's never really found himself in before, completely out of control of his own political movement and in a knockdown, drag-out fight with one of MAGA's biggest stars. He's now forced to change his tune, at least temporarily, as the push for transparency on the criminal case of his former friend, the dead sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, goes on. Donald Trump posted over.
Donald Trump has announced a new platform that shocked everyone.
For many years, I have been searching for opportunities that allow people not just to survive, but to thrive in today's economy. And today, I am ready to share with you one of the most promising areas I have created, which will help many people achieve financial freedom and confidence in the future. Follow again bit.com, enter the special word USA25 to claim your wonderful bonus of 1,500 USDT. Make America great again.
Overnight, a very, very, very long message. It read in part, quote, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide. The House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to, switching to all caps, I don't care. But of course we know that's not true. Of course he cares. He cares a whole lot. He could have released the files as soon as he was inaugurated on January 20th. He could have released the files instead of trying to sweep them all under the rug with some weird unsigned DOJ memo back in July, which was so weird it started the whole suspicious furor from his own coalition in the first place. And if he honestly didn't care, his aides wouldn't have summoned Congresswoman Lauren Boebert last week to the sit room in the basement of the West Wing to get her to remove her signature from the discharge petition that triggered the vote to release the Epstein files. That vote now scheduled for tomorrow. In the Oval Office a couple of minutes ago, Trump added that, quote, sure I would, when he was asked if he would sign a bill to release the Epstein files if it passes the Senate. But on this issue, Trump is following his party, not leading it, which is also a weird place for him. Republican Thomas Massie is predicting a dam break moment when it comes up for a vote, while saying that the fight to release the files is far from over.
I think we could have a deluge of Republicans. There could be 100 or more. I'm hoping to get a veto-proof majority on this legislation when it comes up for a vote. And, you know, the president's been saying this is a hoax. He's been saying that for months. Well, he's just now decided to investigate a hoax, if it's a hoax. And I have another concern about these investigations that he's announced. If they have ongoing investigations in certain areas, those documents can't be released. So this might be a big smokescreen, these investigations, to open a bunch of them as a last-ditch effort to prevent the release of the Epstein files.
Donald, they're on to you. Massie there is saying, in effect, that Trump may have lost this battle, but he does have other ways to keep the files from being released. Trump's rage over the Epstein files is also fueling a very ugly public brawl with another signer of the petition, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Trump, quote, withdrew his support with Greene in a post on Friday, calling her a traitor and a disgrace, among other nasty things. In the wake of Trump posting that about her, Marjorie Taylor Greene says she's getting hoax pizza deliveries and death threats, something that a lot of Trump critics have faced for many, many years now. But she says she's not backing down from supporting the release of the Epstein files. Watch.
The most hurtful thing he said, which is absolutely untrue, is he called me a traitor. And that is so extremely wrong, and those are the types of words used that can radicalize people against me and put my life in danger.
Let's just hit pause here. It's an astonishing thing to happen to anyone that runs against Donald Trump. They're astonishing comments from someone like her, though, someone with a long history of herself pushing baseless conspiracy theories and supporting people and things that are violent and surrounded by violent rhetoric. In 2021, NPR summed up Marjorie Taylor Greene like this, quote, she's denied that a plane hit the Pentagon on September 11th. She supported the idea that the Parkland school shooting was a false flag operation, meant to usher in tighter gun laws. She seemed to agree that Hillary Clinton was recorded filleting a child's face. Marjorie Taylor Greene has also liked social media posts that called for executing deep state FBI agents or that advocated removing House Speaker Nancy Pelosi with, quote, a bullet to the head, end quote. Marjorie Taylor Greene supports QAnon and has said Muslims do not belong in government. So when she was pressed about her history of these things, of inflammatory and offensive comments, Greene said this.
I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country, and it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Is that I'm only responsible for myself and my own words and actions, and I am committed, and I've been working on this a lot lately, to put down the knives in politics. I really just want to see people be kind to one another.
We'll call them cracks. They could become much bigger than that in the MAGA movement, driven by the Epstein files. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Our senior White House reporter, Vaughn Hilliard, is here with me at the table. Political analyst, former Senator Claire McCaskill's here. Also joining us, political analyst and host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller's here. Tim, I have to start with you. MTG, what do you think?
Look, it's hard to know what's going on in her brain, but I got to tell you this. I think it's important, in our society and our political culture, that we incentivize people coming back from the brink instead of just incentivize sending people over the edge. And I think that currently a lot of folks, whether it be the social media algorithms or running for Congress, getting small dollar donors or getting attention on TV, like the incentives are for politicians and even regular people to say the most crazy thing possible, the most extreme thing possible. And so seeing somebody who went down that path try to back off it and apologize, I think is a good thing. I don't think that we don't need to be snowed by her. I mean, you read through her history. I've heard some people say, complain that all this strange new respect for Marjorie Taylor Greene means people are whitewashing her. I haven't seen a lot of whitewashing of her, actually. I've seen a lot of people playing her comments now and within the context of her past experience. I think that's appropriate. And here's the thing. Regardless of what you think about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the person, and whether this is a genuine Saul the Damascus moment or whether it's something else more personal, whether she's trying to get attention or something. A crack in the MAGA coalition is really only going to come from the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world. And so everybody that wants the MAGA coalition to crack, anyone that is fighting against MAGA, that thinks they're an authoritarian threat, should welcome people that were part of MAGA, even if it's too little too late. Because right now, I think we've tried the route of trying to bring in people that are of the kind of college-educated, suburban, former Republican, moderate McCain types. Me and you fit in that boat, Nicole. We grabbed as many of those as we could, and Donald Trump still won last time. And so in order to crack his coalition now, you need to get people that were with him the third time after the insurrection, and that's going to be a gnarlier process, okay? That's going to be a gnarlier process. We're going to have issues with all those folks, and so if she wants to say she's sorry, if she wants to speak to this, if she's representative of other people out there who feel betrayed by him, who went with him the third time, that's a good thing.
She is joined by Thomas Massie, who has really taken the lead on the discharge petition. Let me show you what he had to say on ABC.
The president has gone after you in some deeply personal ways. I mean, attacking you over and over again, even attacking you for regarding your wedding, your recent wedding, which, by the way, congratulations. What do you make of all that? And he's obviously supporting your primary opponents. I mean, what kind of retribution are you facing?
My wife told me, she said, "I told you so. We should have invited Donald Trump. He's mad that he didn't get an invitation." So we're taking it with a grain of salt. He's being a bully or trying to be a bully. And they're trying to beat me here in Kentucky. But here's what's interesting. The people financing this campaign consist completely of 3 billionaires, and they're all in the Epstein class. In fact, one of them is named in Epstein's phone book, not the secret files that the FBI is keeping, but in Epstein's phone book. So it's a small world. Dogs don't bark at parked cars, and we are winning. I'm not tired of winning yet, but we are winning.
Vaughn Hilliard, it was always remarkable to me when the calls came from inside the House. And Anonymous was the first real prominent one. It ended up being Miles Taylor, who was the chief of staff at Donald Trump's first Department of Homeland Security, who detailed the first real look inside. But it culminated maybe for Trump 1.0 in the January 6th Select Committee's public hearings, where all the witnesses, or 90% of them, were former Trump senior West Wing officials, the vice president's chief of staff, the White House counsel, the former Attorney General Bill Barr, who called Trump's delusions of losing an election, BS. What is the state of denial that the complaints are coming from deep inside the MAGA coalition?
I think, to your point, Nicole, the difficulty here 10 years in, and especially with a lame duck president as this one, who cannot run for another term, is where does the power go from here? And I was here as part of this sort of, MAGA resurrection since 2021, who suggested to me that Marjorie Taylor Greene was disappointed that she was not more seriously considered for the VP slot the second go around, and then was very frustrated that President Trump told her that he did not believe that she could win statewide for either governor or Senate in the state of Georgia. And that is suddenly where you look at somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who over the last 4 years was at about pretty much every rally that you could name in whatever state, from North Carolina to Arizona to Georgia on over. And that is where the conversations that I'm having now, in the words we're hearing from Marjorie Taylor Greene, they actually make me reflect largely on similar conversations I had back in 2022 with Mo Brooks, the congressman from Alabama who Donald Trump ran out of town. And you folks will recall he actually spoke at that January 6th event, the Stop the Steal event, and said that they were going to take names and kick ass. But when suddenly Mo Brooks got pushed to the side, he was the one that started sounding the alarms that Donald Trump, unless you go with him 100% of the time, like he resisted when Donald Trump, he alleged, called him and tried to convince other members of Congress to nullify the election results, years after, that is where, when you're looking at this dynamic here, I think what Donald Trump has to be worried about is just how far does distrust spread, because he's sort of this one singular individual who during the pandemic was able to convince a large swath of the American public that he was getting rid of the coronavirus and that it was safe to go outside with a mask. He is somebody who singularly, in two different terms across two different trade wars, has been able to convince a great many people that short-term economic consequence is going to be long-term worth, or it's going to be worth the long-term potential fruit that is born out of this fight. And so when you're looking at this moment here, I think that this is where Marjorie Taylor Greene is pushing back, because, to a great many of these members of Congress in the Senate and the House, that trust among voters doesn't extend to them like it does for Donald Trump. And so in a way, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the embodiment of somebody that has sold MAGA the Donald Trump way. And if she were not to carry that out, could very well have a hard time reconciling the fact that there's a great many voters who, whether you look at Charles Herbster or Roy Moore or Herschel Walker, that an issue like this, sex trafficking, sexual harassment, sexual assault, not everybody in American politics here in the year of 2025 is given the same leniency as Donald Trump specifically has been.
I mean, the political story is a lot simpler than all of this. Donald Trump is less popular than releasing the Epstein files. Full stop. Releasing the Epstein files is one of the most popular things in American politics. The second most popular, I think, was the economy before Trump wrecked it.
Yeah, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, listen, this reminds me a little bit of when we used to talk about Liz Cheney. I remember some of my friends, saying, Claire, how can you be saying kind words about Liz Cheney? And I said, well, because She did the right thing at the right time. Yes, we disagreed on many, many things. And obviously, I disagree with Marjorie Taylor Greene about just about everything. But she read the room, Nicole. She read the room. She has a political antenna here that is more sensitive than Donald Trump and, frankly, than John Barrasso in the United States Senate. She has figured out that she is on the right side of this issue for history, and she's not going anywhere. And I think she also figured it out about the healthcare costs. You know, she's talking about the things that people are worried about. They want the Epstein files released, and they want somebody to pay attention to the fact they can't afford anything. And she's doing both things. So, yeah, and by the way, we've got to give her some props here, because you know what we've been doing on this show for as long as I can remember? We've been saying, why aren't Republicans seeing the light? Why aren't they saying something? Well, at least she may be nuts.
My personal opinion is that, to Tim's point, Marjorie Taylor Greene calling Trump a menace for inciting death threats against her and a swatting of her house and pizza hoaxes to her home is a lot more effective than me saying it, right?
Exactly.
My personal opinion. But Marjorie Taylor Greene aligned herself with QAnon in a way that Liz Cheney never did.
Exactly. No, I don't mean to compare the two. I'm saying there were those people that got cranky about me, saying that I thought Liz Cheney had done some really honorable things around the J6 investigation because of her history and the way she had voted. I say the same thing about this woman. You can't compare the two.
Right.
One was a really serious legislator who had different opinions than I did about a lot of things. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been somebody who, you know, we really kind of made fun of for the first couple of years. She was in the national picture because of the tinfoil hat stuff she talked about.
Well, and her role in going to the White House after he lost and helping to sow all the seeds of the insurrection, I think, is an important part of her history. Tim, I want to come back to you about a fissure that exists in sort of the non-Trump MAGA world. And that is, right now, Megyn Kelly and Marjorie Taylor Greene are looking at MAGA and both trying to make calculations about where it's heading, right? For different reasons, maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene for running for president, maybe Megyn trying to read the media moment. They've ended up on opposite sides, right? SNL had a quip about in the Trump character saying, you know, Megyn Kelly said, you know, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't really a pedophile. I mean, it was so bad it's become part of comedy, which becomes part of culture. It's like so bad. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has made this opposite calculation or decision or revelation. I'm actually open to the fact that it's an epiphany. I mean, all the things. However she got into the boat, at least she's rowing towards something better for democracy. How do you think those two prominent MAGA figures ended up looking at the same thing and reaching totally opposite conclusions?
It's interesting. I guess I'll just add one little bit to their potential motivations, because we're in a strange world. I feel like I have to say this. Maybe Megyn Kelly's also thinking that she might run for president in 2028. I mean, who knows?
Everything is possible, right?
Times. I think, everybody sees is now looking at that and be like, well, if he could do it, why couldn't I do it? Look, I think that part of it is the fact. I think Megyn Kelly's looking at this and saying, look, nobody's ever won a bet in the Republican Party, at least, betting against Donald Trump at this point. And that's why I think the Marjorie Taylor Greene case is so interesting, right? Because everybody that has tried to go against him within the party has lost, at least as far as primaries are concerned, you know, et cetera. I mean, obviously he lost the 2020 election. A lot of people have, you know, maybe gained something for their soul by going against him, but politically they've lost. And so I think Megyn Kelly is making the safer bet here. I think what's more and I guess just one more thing on the Marjorie Taylor Greene side, I think she maybe feels a little bit more free to distance herself from Trump, because she's like built up this credibility with the MAGA base, like, whereas Megyn Kelly's like this newcomer, and so they might look, you know, MAGA base might look at her more askance. But to me, the more interesting thing about this discussion is, like, it's a sign of just how weak Donald Trump is. Like, I really we wouldn't have been having this discussion a month ago because everybody was scared of Donald Trump and he seemed so strong, and they were making Trump 2028 jokes, and the richest people in the world were folding in front of him. And now it's just has taken this one off-year election in Virginia and New Jersey, plus the Epstein issue, plus the failure to message around the shutdown. And now all of a sudden, I do think you're seeing calculations happening. And that's interesting in itself. The fact that MAGA people are themselves starting to say, hey, there's a future here. And that's a real change from a month ago.
It's just, it's so, I totally agree with you, and I hadn't figured out how to say it as artfully as you just did, but, you know, we're rotating around a different set of stars now, it seems, or you know, he may not be, and whether he realizes it or not, it will be an infinite well of reporting for Yvonne, but he may not be the center of the universe for too many more news cycles. Von Hilliard, thank you for being here. Tim Miller, thank you for starting us off. Claire sticks around when we come back. Congress